Starting. All right, you'll have to unmute yourself. Anyone who wants to talk.
Yeah. All right. Gonna share my screen because that always goes super well. Okay. That. Okay. Right. So, migration season. Everyone celebrate. 17-0. It's looking like it's gonna be, in terms of migration effort, I don't think it's gonna be a very exciting one. Um, Good news, but there are a couple of there's one thing that I would say is definitely like a make sure you pay attention to this and get on it. The other things are just like for your information kind of stuff. So whatever, let's just get into it. Going through the migration guide again, like I'm not going to be going through the entire migration guide. I expect everyone who is performing the migration to go through this themselves. Uh, the whole point of having these not quite webinars during migration season is just to go over the stuff that might require some additional explanation or context or whatever in addition to what's in the migration guide, which honestly for the last couple of years has been almost nothing. Um, but we're still doing it. If nothing else, it gives you guys a chance to ask us questions directly about migrations, and we can share experience with it if any come up. But specific things I want to talk about. I want to draw extra attention to this one. This is part of the CM language changes. It's kind of a nasty one because technically it'll compile if you don't do anything. However, it will behave wrong. Um, what had happened was, or in the past, the reverse keyword on a for loop didn't actually work correctly for all collection types. And some had found that if you, for example, like with ranges, if you reverse the range as well as use a reverse key, then it would work as intended. That was never how it was supposed to work, though. That was a bug. We have fixed said bug. However, in fixing the bug, we've made it so that this will now do the wrong thing. So eventually we flipped it so that doing the weird thing is now uh, unspecified behavior, but the intended workflow is working as intended. So from 17.0 on, if you want to reverse the iteration of a collection, you still define the collection as normal and just toss on the reverse keyword. If you do it the air quotes wrong way, it'll still compile, it just won't iterate at all. So if you had this in your code where you reversed it, it will just skip over that now. If it's unfortunate that this is in a separate section, I might come back and merge these later so it's easier to find. We did throw in a simple regular expression you can use to just search through your code base for all instances where you might have done this, and you can find them and fix them real quick that way. So you can just do a regex search in Emacs or VS Code or whatever you're using, and find all instances where you're using that reverse keyword in a for loop to make sure that you have them in the right order. Questions on that?
Nope, not about that.
Okay. Um, that's actually all that's directly in the migration I want to talk about today. A couple of internal devs had questions about, let's see if I can, let's see, yeah, this one. A couple internal devs had questions about this feature snapping change. I unfortunately haven't had time to find out more to answer their questions, but I'll just say that if it's something you're curious about, I do intend to investigate a little bit. But there are changes to how features for feature snapping are generated. Um, Basically, we've decided that the default feature snapping that comes with the snappers is not great for users. And so we want to improve the default feature snapping. I believe based on, let's see, hang on. 3D features are now generated from each snapper's mesh by default. Yes. This is only default behavior, though. If you have defined any of your own feature snapping for whatever reason, that shouldn't be affected. This is only the default out-of-the-box feature snapping. Right. What else? So, the next big thing is this switch to LLVM compilation. I've said this kind of in passing to a number of people, but consider this the official statement on the subject. Starting with 17.0, we will incorporate the LLVM compiler into extension building for everyone. So to explain LLVM very quickly, and I'm gonna like really oversimplify it because it's actually a really complex set of tools, and I don't have half hour to explain all of them. Well, I do, but I just don't want to, so I'm not gonna. If you are after this interested in what LLVM is, I would strongly recommend you check out llvm.org. There's their page is pretty good at explaining what they do and what it is. But the simple version is that the LLVM project is a special compiler. It was a compiler built to address the problem of having so many proprietary compilers out in the wild. For C specifically, there was like 3 different compilers that existed. All of them were specific to some kind of domain, like Microsoft had their own. There was the GCC project. There was a couple of like these projects that defined how to compile a specific language, sometimes for even a specific platform, and it was all very proprietary, and very like locked down, and not a lot of like shared information. The LLVM project was, I mean, it came together for a number of reasons, but I would say the biggest reason is compilation as a concept has become a fairly well understood like computer science. And there's a lot of information and experience to share that would be valuable for everyone. So let's create a compiler that works for more or less anything. It's a compiler that doesn't have a specific language or platform tied to it. The way it works is anyone who's looking to leverage LLVM will create a sort of precompiler that compiles their language down to this fake virtual machine, the LL virtual machine. And then that compiler would kick in and compile it the rest of the way, which sounds like compiling with extra steps, but it's actually a really powerful workflow because now the entire like IT community can come together to develop and optimize this one compiler instead of staying siloed in all these proprietary compilers. So various like companies like Microsoft and Mozilla and Samsung, I think even, like a whole bunch of these companies are contributing to this one compiler. The open source community is contributing to it. Academia is contributing to it. So all of like the best minds are contributing to make this LLVM compiler the best that we know how to make. And it can be plugged into just about anything. We are plugging CM into it. So starting with 17.0, we will be compiling CM into this intermediate language and then giving it over to the LLVM compiler to then compile the rest of the way. The result of code compiled this way is a pretty consistent 20% performance boost, like a weirdly consistent 20% performance boost in any code that's compiled this way. I haven't tested this specifically, but I think I would bet that the resulting binary size is also slightly smaller. Unproven though. So yeah, we should see some pretty impressive performance improvements going this route. So what does this mean for the developer experience? In terms of what you do and how you develop and all this stuff, nothing is going to change. The way it's going to work is that this new compiler is plugged in as part of just the normal building an extension. You don't need to do anything different. It'll just happen. And it'll be incorporated into CT. So won't need to do anything. You might notice that when you go to build your extension, your build times increase slightly. Although from what we've seen, it's actually not super significant. It's actually a lot less than we were expecting. Actually, Tyler, you're in here. You did this for your extensions. Did you happen to notice that it took significantly longer when you did this?
I didn't actually pay attention to the build times, but
Excellent.
yeah.
So we'll just assume total victory. It's not that bad.
It did build without any problems though. So
excellent. We want this to be, because there's a lot of potential risk in this, we're doing a very, very careful rollout of this like new compilation chain. Because we're talking about changing how every single line of CM code is compiled, we want to be like super careful that we're not creating any new problems that we can't or back out of, I guess. So what's going to happen is starting with 17.0, or even now, like as you're working on your extensions to release for 17.0, anytime you're in that official branch, or I guess beta branch, sorry, the build pipeline will actually build 2 versions of your extension, or specifically the code for your extension. It'll build the older, we call it incremental way, as well as this new LLVM way. And they will take both versions of your compiled code and build them both into the resulting like CMX file, the archive. So what's going to happen is we'll have these like hybrid extensions for a while. That will include all of your code compiled the old way as well as the new way. And again, this all happens automatically. And then at runtime, when CET is actually running, the user will have, through the helper, will have like the start helper will have the option to use either LLVM or not, and that will just trigger CET to use either the old version of code or the new version of code for all extensions. By default with 17.0, that toggle will be off, meaning that for 17.0, everyone will default to using the code compiled the old way with the option to turn it on if they want. In fact, we'll have probably some testers, internal, externals, maybe some power users test it with it on just to make sure. But for default, everyone will still use the old version of the code. Assuming that goes well, for 17.5, we'll flip it so it's defaulted to on. So it'll be running for everyone, but they'll have the option to turn it off if they run into any issues. And then again, assuming everything goes smoothly, for 18.0, we will remove the toggle entirely and also stop doing this hybrid build thing anymore, and we'll just build LLVM style.
so questions
Yeah.
on that. So does that mean users will download both versions of both compiled versions of the extensions when they're downloading updates in 17.0, or when they flip that switch, will that tell it to go download the LLVM build?
The extension, when it is built, will include both versions of the code. So the actual like CMX archive that gets shipped out, the one that you upload, the one that users download, will include both versions of the code.
Okay, so the non-code artifacts won't be duplicated. Just the code. Okay. That helps answer, because I was wondering, because some of our larger extensions, I was like, man, that's going to be beefy. But okay, that answers that question.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you brought that up, because that was one of the really big concerns we have. Like, is this going to drastically increase the size of extensions that are floating around? In our experience, no, not really. This is kind of a surprise. We have found that especially with the larger extensions that have way more code, well, at least we thought it was way more code, the change in like file size is almost nothing, like less than half a meg, like super tiny. Mostly because, I mean, at least our theory is that a lot of the physical size of an extension actually comes from things like swatches and models and icons and all that stuff, and those aren't being duplicated, so the impact is pretty small. The smaller extensions that are like leveraging say data catalogs more heavily, they will probably be impacted more just because they don't pack those files into their extensions, and so the like relative size of code in their extensions is more. However, we're still talking like 10% increase, I think we've seen in our testing, 10 to 20. So an extension that was, like 5 meg compiled is going to be like 5.5 meg compiled. So even for the smaller ones, it's a very minimal change. And again, this is only temporary. Eventually, we're going to turn off the old way of compiling, and then extensions should go back to normal size or potentially even smaller. We'll see.
And the other question I had was, does this have any impact or noticeable difference for dev mode or not?
No. So currently, when you're in dev mode, you will only be building the old/current way using the incrementals. Haven't decided how that's going to play out in the long run. We may just leave it that way. We may not, unclear. But at least for now, you will still, in dev mode, compile just the old way. And so you shouldn't notice any difference. If you want, there is an actual flag you can set to compile in the LLVM stack at dev time. Unfortunately, I don't have that down, but if anyone's interested, we'll probably post it somewhere. So if for some reason you wanted to, you could. So short answer, no, your dev time experience shouldn't be impacted.
So you mentioned that the build times are going to increase. I'm assuming is that because it's doing that dual build type thing? And if
Exactly.
so, when you do fully deprecate it, do you see build times like changing significantly? Like when it's only doing the LLVM build? I was just curious if you've
Yeah.
compared the times between the two.
So the number that I want to see, and I suspect the number you're asking about, is how long does it take to compile an extension the old way compared to how long does it take to compile an extension just the LLVM way, not this hybrid
Exactly.
thing. The hybrid thing is just a temporary thing anyway. It'll be longer, whatever. I don't have that number.
Okay, no problem.
Our initial suspicion is that it will take longer. The LLVM compiler spends a lot more time and effort on optimizations, and that takes time. That being
Which
said,
results in the 20% performance boost.
exactly.
During
It
runtime.
spends more time finding,
Got it.
code it can eliminate and shorter code paths and stuff like that. That takes time to actually compile. However, we were pretty sure before we actually started this project, we were pretty sure that compiling through LLVM was going to be like, oh, this is going to take like 10 times longer. It's going to be a massive improvement. We actually haven't seen that. Even in like while we've been testing these like hybrid builds, the build times have not gone up that much. They have gone up, but not that much. So pretty unclear what it's going to look like starting with 18.0. I mean, it might even compile faster. I don't see how, but like these numbers are hard to argue with.
Nice. Sounds good.
Any other questions on this? Okay. So as a quick recap before we switch topics, again, really not expecting any developer to have to change anything about how they develop or build or publish or anything. We think we've got this lockdowns that nothing should change. If you do while you're doing the migration or at any point really, if you hit a compilation error that you think might be specific to an LLVM problem, you can contact developer support and there are ways to check that. We can like force compiles of other ways and stuff. But we've done a fair amount of testing ourselves, and we have our internal consultant teams also doing this, and so far nothing has come up. So I'm not expecting any trouble.
And then just for my understanding, so during extension and installs and updates, if somebody is using the LLVM flag and CET and the update fails, is it going to fall back first to see if it then works the old way?
So for 17.0, everyone should by default be using the old way.
Yeah, I'm just wondering for people that might somehow turn that on.
If they turn it on, yeah. So if the update fails,
because I'm just thinking because I could see that could be somewhere where if somehow the compiled bits are different enough somehow that it's failing to install or maybe trim something it shouldn't. I don't know, but just
so the only way I can see that failing. So okay, I don't know how familiar everyone is with the full update process, but basically the way it goes is we download the new extensions. In the background, we actually spin up a separate instance of CET, and we add those extensions and try to do a startup in the background as a test. Did it actually install correctly? Did anything crash during startup? And if it doesn't, then we say, all right, it went fine. Time to restart CET. And we prompt the user to restart their version of CET. So for an installation to fail would mean that we downloaded the extension, we attempted to run it in the background, and that crashed somewhere. Theoretically, that crash that occurred could be one that occurs in the LLVM version of the code and not the old incremental way. Technically, that could happen. It would be kind of tricky to prove. If they were someone who'd chatted into user support, we could probably look at their logs and see that. And from there, we could prompt them okay, well, try turning off LLVM and update again and see how it goes.
That's fine. I was just kind of curious because I could see some of us developers be okay, help pilot this, right? We turn it on in our production version of CET. So when we install updates, make sure things are going great. But yeah, I just wasn't sure. Okay. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah. I think again, it would have to be something that manifests not specifically at update but really for any time in the LLVM build. But yeah, user support is prepared to help with that if that happens. All right. If anyone thinks of any questions on this, obviously we have time to come back to this if we want, but I'm going to move on. This new icon library. Now, before I explain anything about this, I want to make it something pretty clear because this wasn't clear to me and it makes it kind of confusing. None of what I'm about to describe has anything to do with your own icons. So your the icons you have for your products, or if you've made a custom animation, you made an icon for that, your branding, none of that is applicable to this topic at all. That's a completely separate thing. This is specifically discussing icons that are air quotes standard for CET or general purpose icons. So for example, if you have a cancel animation or a delete animation or something like that, there's kinds of icons that traditionally you just got from the res folder and I think CET runtime or something like that. All those standard icons, those are going to be changing. Starting with 17.0, there is this new icon library. This is a new set of icons as well as a new system for getting to those icons that will it's intended to be more consistent. We're trying to avoid the issue where there's 17 different cancel icons or 4 different project information icons and stuff like that. We're trying to unify them all. We're trying to update them so they look more modern. but also allow for more situations that can be used in. Sometimes you want a small one, sometimes you want a large one. Sometimes your extension's branding is, black and white outlined themed. Sometimes it's color themed. So giving more options there that are still considered to be on brand and give a consistent user experience inside of CET. The short order version is that the old way of grabbing icons will eventually go away. We don't have a timeline yet. We're thinking a year plus. It will eventually be a thing as part of the extension review or the annual review or the on-demand review or whatever extension review you're running. But eventually it will be a requirement to use the newer icon format. But the timeline is still to be set on the scope of like a year or so, I think they were saying. So everyone has time to make this change. You will use a new function for retrieving said icons. And there is this new fancy icon library tab being added that allows you to browse through all of the icons that are available. And it can even, I think on click, it automatically grabs the right like function call for that icon, and you can just paste it into your code to switch over to the new icons. Let's see here. If you are interested in performing this migration sooner than later, like I said, this is all available in 17.0. You can start updating your icons now. In fact, that's probably something we would like to see. Again, we're trying to unify the user experience, so that would be a good thing. However, something we've agreed would be really helpful. We're going to explore the possibility of creating a tool to hopefully automate this. The working theory is, and again, this is just sort of paper napkin talk at this point, but our theory is that most of the old icons probably have a new equivalent to them. And since they are just mostly hard-coded strings, we might be able to create a tool to automatically find these in your code and then swap that out for what the new one should be. And so hypothetically, that can make this process a lot faster, but we haven't actually developed that yet. Or determined it even can be developed. We just think it can.
One question there.
Yeah.
So this icon extension, is that going to be available to more than just developers? Because it, as an example, there's like the facelift extension, like sample, that you can see like the icons right above those in that sample image. That's only available to developers. So it's kind of a pain in the ass when our like requirements people couldn't actually just like see all the facelift functionality. So just, yeah, it'd be cool if more than developers could install this test extension to see the icon library. Long story short.
I'm with you. I will take that back to the team. I don't know how they're. I can tell you, we probably are not okay with just having it being like a free extension in the marketplace, because then everyone grabs it. But I agree that it should be something that is available to more than just developers. So I'll discuss that with the team.
Maybe manufacturers or something. That would be helpful.
Yeah. It's more a question of, well, how do we actually do that? Like, how do we actually get them access? If we were to set up it as like a requires permission extension, that's kind of an administrative burden that I don't know if we're willing to go through. I don't know. Like I said, we'll discuss it with the team.
They just have a special build box they could install, or even like worst case.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll see what they say. Any further questions on this?
Nope.
Again, we don't have any timelines on when this change will be expected from extensions, but as soon as we do, we'll communicate it out through the dev blog as well as probably some other things. For those who are interested in getting ahead of this and starting now, there is this article up on the dev docs. It's in the design system under Seek Developer Guides, the implementing and migrating icons from the icon library. I should say to the icon library. Where's it from? Whatever. Okay. Let me think. Did I have anything else? I don't think so. I'll point out again, we made a post about this earlier this week, but there is this new developer roadmap, a place for new features to go. So this is not just for developers, it's also catalog specialists and QA as well. But requests for new tools or new features will, for the most part, go here. And this also gives everyone the chance to sort of upvote things that have been submitted. We've already seen, I think most of the people actually in this call have already been upvoting things in here. So this is, I guess, mostly for people who are watching the recording. This is a thing that exists. There are a couple of specifically developer-related features that are supposed to be on here, but apparently aren't yet. Like, we have some CM AI initiatives that are being worked on. They should be here as well. Not sure why. I'll poke the team to update this. But yeah, if you got a request for some new feature, you can put that in here. And this is available from the developer portal, that roadmap button. And I think that's all I had planned. Alexis, you read through this in far more detail than I did. Is there anything else worth talking about before we end this segment?
Just as a mention, we are modifying IND tags, not like super dangerously, but
That's
we
what
are
I was gonna ask
modifying.
about. Yeah.
Yep, they are being modified. They actually cover it really well both here and in the QA guide on what new behavior should look like. So we're changing up the stable. Wait, he's calling it stable in the guide, so I'm going to use the same terminology. It's just trying to keep it constant. The ID for it is being adjusted so it's more stable to part instead of just in the general folder. There is a bunch of migration methods they already wrote that you can use to make sure all of your IND tag modifications are migrated to the new system. Paul, do you have the QA guide open?
No.
I'll send it to you.
I'm gonna see if I can find it.
Okay, well, I'm gonna send it in the chat for the rest of you.
Let's see, where would I go? I would go to
Help Center.
Oops, that makes sense. And then can I do like QA migration? Will that work? Let's find out.
Looks like you pulled our normal migration instead of the QA one.
Maybe a feature request could be to have this guide in the migration guides.
Oh,
web
spoiler
page.
alert.
I thought we
I
put
call this CET documentation roulette, where you have to figure out what site actually has the documentation you want.
Yeah.
the site.
I don't know what you're saying, Alexis.
Just do guide. You could have just searched QA guide
I gave up.
and it would have led to us.
Too late, gave up.
Okay. Well, that's really helpful. That was helpful. Yep. I am. I don't know what to tell you. I'm literally just okay. Just type QA guide.
QA guide.
This is a process, people, just so you know, you don't actually have to do it this way. And then if you hit in any of those, it says migration testing guides. Yep, if you click that, there's 17.
Nice.
Yes. Yep. And then in this, they talk about the IND tags. I don't remember what section they put it under. Keep going. for those of you who do migration, please check this guide. It actually helps you a lot. So here is the general, this is what a user will see. So part of this issue is the legacy behavior is the behavior that is before 17.0. So how the behavior acts currently. And part number changes and part number and option changes is our new behaviors we're introducing. The user can go in and select which one they'd like. So this just means when an IND tag resets from their changed value, now in the new behaviors, it'll either change when the part number changes or when a part number and an option changes. We do start it defaultly on the legacy behavior. So if users don't want to change it, they won't notice. But if they would like a different experience, they do need to go in and change that. And then they talk about farther down the part numbers and just the general pieces of it for users. But again, in the guide, they actually cover migration methods, how the new source ID is set up for holding it on, making sure it's maintained on the part and stuff like that. So if you have custom IND things of any sort, please make sure to check this and validate that the behavior is working as intended. I think that was the biggest one that I was worried about.
Neat. However, well, I want to address something else that was said. The whole like, where do I go for documentation thing? That is a very, very well known problem, and something we're actively working on. And this is just a me thing, have plans to try and merge all of the QA migration stuff into the same migration guide for everyone else as well. So QA content will be in here as well. We've gotten a lot of reports of people saying like, well, the QA guide has like this 70% of the stuff, and the dev guide has this 70% of the stuff. There's some overlap, but not all of it, and it's just kind of a mess. Why is it all in the same place? Working on it. I don't have a timeline, but I would hope by 17.5 at the latest, we would have brought all of the QA migration content into this same place. So it'll all be here. Fingers crossed.
Cool.
Okay. Anything else before go back to normal open office hours?
Was the part option stuff removed that I think you guys deprecated it in 16.5, and then I think the plan was to remove it this time?
Alexis, do you see anything for that?
Don't remove doesn't sound right. I think it's still deprecated.
Okay.
It usually takes us a long time to actually remove stuff.
I did a 17.0 build and just checked out the failures, and the only things I saw was like a line type constructor failure, and then I did get a failure for all of those old part methods. I didn't investigate it at all, but all of the like, it's like, I can't remember, custom line price or something, and things like that. So
Sounds old.
I think the new methods are in this guide for what you should be using, because line type sounds familiar. But I don't remember where it is. But I believe we put in the new methods you're supposed to use.
the new methods came in
yeah,
16.5.
I meant because they listed a bunch of removes, so it might actually have been removed because now we're telling you to use the new ones. It sounds familiar, Derek.
There it
I
is,
don't
right
remember
there,
where
pricing
it is. Yep, I was
APIs.
like, yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, so it just changed it. It didn't remove it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's the new stuff. Option price sum. Okay.
They make it sound like the interface hasn't changed though.
Might just have to add, like, if there's I mean, it could be maybe there's a new optional parameter that needs to just be added to the signature or something as
Yeah.
well, which would cause a compile failure.
Sounds good.
Mostly unchanged. What the hell does mostly mean? Eric.
But yeah, did a build and only saw basically like 3 errors essentially from 16.5. So it doesn't seem like at least from us, major changes. Sounds more
Excellent.
like features.
And then that also means congrats, you're building LLVM. Good job, I guess. Anything else before we move on? All right. As is the new normal, we will be doing this like segment as part of open office hours for the next couple of weeks through the migration season. They probably will not be describing any new content because again, the migration is supposed to be frozen at this point, so there shouldn't be anything new to bring up. But if there are changes, or if we notice some people are having some trouble with migration, we'll discuss those things in the following weeks. But otherwise, yeah, we'll call that it for this week. Catherine, would you mind slapping the stop recording button?